Well, do we have Jack Delf with us? There he is. Hi, Jack. Jack, you're on mute.
How's that?
Excellent.
You can hear me now, great.
I can hear you. And do we have our colleagues from the ministries from Brčko district?
As in, yeah?
Yes, hello everybody.
Hello.
Jelena, we're all here.
Excellent. Jelena, good morning.
Pozdrav.
Aleksandar with us. There he is. Well,
Da,
good
dobar dan svima.
Good morning to all of you. Or is it good afternoon? Good morning. And I'd like to just quickly introduce the session, and I'm going to leave it in the good hands of Jack to shepherd all of us through this. Jack is a true expert. I proud to call him a dear friend as well. Jack comes from the marketing and advertising world in London. So he understands communication, marketing, he can sell you anything. And but then he stumbled across tourism and he moved into a happier industry. And since then, he's been doing absolutely some wonderful work. And it's no secret, Jack, because you mentioned it in one of the workshops, that he's been working with all types of clients, including Bill Gates. So if you're able to cater to that sort of discerning audience, you're doing wonderful work. Jack has been, I worked with Jack in a number of countries around the world. And the key theme that he brings is how to attract the intrepid travelers, those that may be resilient to not necessarily just crises, but any type of influence that may inhibit people from traveling. But more importantly, Jack brings experience in taking experiences that we might take for granted at the local community level, or that may be sold for a very low price, and magnify their value and present them to the world in a way that maximizes impact to the local communities. Jack, just a quick note, if you allow me, before I turn it over to you, I just want to thank our colleagues from the ministries in Brčko district. Aleksandar, it's great to see you. And it's good to see that you've emerged from COVID healthy, and I committing myself.
Zaista jedno
Yes,
neprijatno iskustvo, ali svima želim dobro
Yes, a
zdravlje.
very unpleasant experience, but I wish everybody good health, and if they can avoid this disease, that would be the best. Otherwise, well, you have to fight it.
And I want to come and see you soon. So we'll give you a call in the next day or two and schedule something. And Jelena, I want to also thank you for the great partnership working together on the COVID protocols that's been adopted by the RS government and your ministry, and the tourism recovery plan. Really, this the whole slew of initiatives. And also I want to thank Inja for the partnership with the federal ministry, and we wish you the best. I know you're kind of staying home right now. I understand the news today, but I wish you the best of health, and that you'd be fine and your family would be fine. With this, Jack, take it away. You're the expert with our experts from the government institutions. Please.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you call up my slides, please, Feja, while I start my introduction? So you heard there from Ibrahim that I have a background in television advertising. I'm prouder of my work in the last 16 years running my own adventure travel business here in the Balkans and managing to bring high-end tour operators and high-value clients to the region, even though everybody told me that would be impossible 16 years ago. But I will start by talking a bit about drawing on my experience in advertising. Why is the slide not changing? Do I have control? Feja, can you give me control of the slides?
You have control, but there seems to be some lag, so please be careful.
There's a lag. Okay, I'll bear that in mind. So I want to start by talking, using some of my experience from the advertising world, and that's to talk about brand. And Al Hershen yesterday talked about what a destination brand is. I just want to reiterate that a brand is not the slogan or the logo that you have for a destination. A brand is really an expectation that people have about the kind of experience they're going to have when they come to Bosnia-Herzegovina. So if you were to stop somebody in the street and say, what about a trip to Bosnia-Herzegovina? You know, what is the first expectation that they would have about this destination? And 15, 16 years ago, when I started working here, I used to hear people worried about safety issues because of the unpleasant history here, which is now ancient history. That's more than 20 years ago. But that's not what I hear now. And now when I'm talking to potential tour operators, potential clients, I still hear, oh, but that's former Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia was a budget destination. So we expect prices to be very low, and we expect it to be a cheap destination to come and visit. And I saw this earlier as well when Justin was talking about our competitive set and saying that we're up against destinations like Italy. You know, what do we, if we can compete with Italy on food, for example, what is our advantage that we have? And I saw some comments, well, we're cheaper than Italy. And that's true. And as you can see from this chart here, the average cost of a trip to Bosnia-Herzegovina is lower than other places in Europe. And that's something we can build upon. But we have to be very careful before we take to the market the idea that we're a cheap destination, that this is a low price destination, because once you get that brand image of a destination, it's very, very hard to shift. And it also undersells really what we have to offer in Bosnia-Herzegovina, because even before COVID-19, we saw a revolution in the way that people travel, and that they wanted different things out of their travel experiences increasingly. And those different expectations and requirements were falling in line with what Bosnia-Herzegovina has to offer. So my premise in this presentation is that Bosnia-Herzegovina should be a high value tourism destination. And we can do that without necessarily having to invest a lot of money in infrastructure and this kind of thing. And one of the first things we have to do is be very careful about how we market and sell the destination. As you see, I put at the bottom of this chart, I've been looking at various websites and the way that businesses are promoting the destination. And we keep seeing again and again, cheap prices, low cost, save money, best price, a budget destination. And the worry there is, again, when people see budget and low price, they make a mental shortcut. For them, that also says low value, poor quality, and perhaps overcrowded as well. So we've really got to think about how we do that. And I'm really having trouble here changing the slides. I've pressed it 20 times now, so we're probably going to jump on several slides. Pedro, can you change the slide for me? Perhaps we do it that way. If I ask you to change the slide, it might be quicker.
I'll remove control. Okay.
There we go. It's quite small, this chart, but it's the graphic portrayal I want you to see. So this is a piece of research that I conducted through the Western Balkans Geotourism Network, because I'm also chairman of that. And we have a wish list, if you like, of major high value tour operators that we want to attract to the whole of the Balkans. So when I say high value, I'm talking about the kind of tour operators that offer very rich itineraries with lots of experiences and lots of opportunities for the guests to have valuable experiences that they put value on, that they were prepared to spend money on. So rather than just coming and sitting on a beach, buying a hotel and having a relaxing holiday, these are the tour operators that actually creating these experiences where people can really come and live as locals and understand what Bosnia has to offer and try all the wonderful things that can be offered in the destination. So we have this target list, and these are the tour operators we want to go after. I should also say that they're high value tour operators, not only because, you know, the guests tend to spend more money on their trip, and the average is about €1,000 per trip here, but they're also high value because of the quality of their offer. They will help raise the standards throughout Bosnia-Herzegovina. If we're working with these tour operators, not only will they be promoting the destination on our behalf, but they'll also be helping us raise our standards and getting some of the service issues right that we need to address. So anyway, those were the tour operators we looked at. And what we discovered was that only 45% of them were actually visiting Bosnia-Herzegovina, of the ones that are coming to the Balkans. But it's actually worse than that, because of the 924 tours that are offered in the region, only 7% of those tours touched on Bosnia-Herzegovina. And what we also found was that they were just typically visiting Bosnia-Herzegovina for 2 days. They would visit Sarajevo, they would visit Mostar, and then they would leave. And they wouldn't do anything really involved, or they wouldn't really get under the skin of Bosnia-Herzegovina. They wouldn't have time in the destination to see things or to find things they wanted to spend money on, experiences they wanted to buy. And what was really happening is, I think other destinations in the Balkans are selling Bosnia-Herzegovina as an add-on. So, you know, come to the region and we'll give you 2 extra days in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And I don't see, there was only one tour that we looked at where the tour operator was just basing their trip solely in Bosnia-Herzegovina and taking full advantage of all of the fantastic experiences that you can have here and creating an 8-day program for Bosnia-Herzegovina. What's happening is those tour operators are coming in, perhaps they're using Bosnia-Herzegovina to bring down the unit price of their trip, and they're adding 2 extra days to give something extra to see and a chance just to dip your toe in the water and see what Bosnia-Herzegovina has to offer. So that's one issue that we have to address. The other thing that, and I think Justin talked about this as well, is who are our key markets? And you saw it's Croatia, China, Serbia. Whereas the top spending markets in Europe, like Germany and the UK, are really not represented here. And they present a real opportunity for us if we can create the right products for them. I believe, and this is my premise, that we have all of the assets we need to create high value tourism, but we need to do a bit of work on fine tuning how we create experiences and how we offer experiences to people. So as you see from the markets that we're currently reaching in Bosnia-Herzegovina, if you go down through that list, you'll see a lot of emerging tourism source markets. So these are countries that haven't perhaps been leisure traveling as long as Western Europe and North America, far more experienced international travelers. And what we see, another trend we see is for the emerging markets, is if you haven't traveled much before, your initial impulse is to go out there and tick off a number of destinations. Have a bucket list of places you want to visit, and you can come back to your source country and you can impress people by saying, I've been to Paris. But what we see is as people become more experienced travelers and they've taken 4 or 5 international trips, they want to have a deeper travel experience. They really want to understand something about the destination they're visiting. They want to experience some of their local lifestyle. They want to make local connections, make local friends. You know, from the English market, which Justin was talking about, if I was to say to people at a dinner party, I've been to Paris, nobody would be impressed. What would impress people is if I said that I had this amazing experience where I learned to cook French food with a chef, I hung out with local people, and I really saw Paris in a way that local people see, rather than just being on a tour and just being there to observe the architectural sites. And I think we tend in Bosnia-Herzegovina, with the tour operators we have, tend to rely a bit too much on 2 things. And first is observational tourism, where you get out of the bus, you look at something, take some photographs, and you're back on the bus. And the second thing I've already referred to is we rely too much, I believe, on offering low prices. Low prices are always going to be important, but what we need to do is we need to build value into our offer. We can't just simply put the prices up. We have to create a much more valuable experience for our guests. Pedro, can you change the slide? Because again, I'm trying to and nothing's happening. Oh, that's the next slide, I believe. So what are these high value tourists looking for? And I said we need to build value into the offer. I'm not talking about luxury tourism. I'm not talking about limousines from the airport, 6-star resorts and gold plated bath taps. Higher value travelers are really looking for, as I said, these authentic travel experiences. And I've put up this slide here for this diagram here from the Adventure Travel Trade Association. I do a lot of work with them. And they define adventure travelers really as people who are looking for a travel adventure. We tend to think sometimes about adventure travelers as being hardcore adventurers who want to take zip lines and mountain climbing and all this sort of stuff. But really adventure travel is about the travel adventure and actually experiencing a destination. So in their definition, they say that really good experiential adventure travel includes 3 different things. And first of all is an activity. And again, we tend to think of climbing and cycling and hiking, which are the #1 activities, but it could also include a cooking experience, or it could include a craft making experience. And then you need to have some connection with the local culture of the destination. You want to find out how local people live. You want to learn about their history, but the living culture is also very important within a destination. What is it unique about the way Bosnian and Herzegovins live that can be interesting and can give you stories to take home and tell your friends? And the other third important part they need is is nature as well. And this is something that we're seeing becoming more important post-COVID. So I'm talking here about trends that we identified in the lead up to the COVID pandemic. But what we're seeing is, and all the research is showing, that this kind of travel, which is small group, which is nature-based, which is you may stay longer in a destination, you're not traveling continually across borders just to look at sites, but you're actually having a deeper experience with the destination. All of these things, we believe, are going to be even more important. So we're going to see an acceleration in this. And even before the COVID pandemic, this was a $680 billion business and was growing at 22% faster than conventional normal travel. So fly and flop, beach destination travel, that kind of thing. So these adventure travelers, and I'm using this as a term that includes the whole of the market we want to address, they want genuine, unspoiled and authentic destinations. So that's a box we tick. That's something we have and we should utilize and not think about being a cheap destination, but actually having something that other destinations have already lost. Too many destinations in Europe have already been polished by mass tourism, and you get a very formulaic tourist experience when you visit there. I'll give you the example of visiting a winery. If you visit some of the big French chateaus, yes, they're famous, they produce famous wines, but they really have so many tourists going through the door that you find yourself on a conveyor belt of tourism where you basically arrive. They time how much time you have in each of the different rooms within the cellars, and then you have your tasting experience, and then you find yourself in the gift shop, and it leaves something lacking. When you visit a winery in Bosnia-Herzegovina, you're far more likely to meet the owner. You're going to sit down, you're going to have an unscheduled travel experience, the bread's going to be brought out, the food's going to be brought out, this kind of thing. So this is what we need to major on, and we're to compete with some of these established destinations. And the good news is this is what the market's looking for. We need good, distinctive, unique natural and cultural attractions. We know we have those in spades, and we need good accommodations. And Justin's just informed us that actually our accommodations rank higher than the average for TripAdvisor. And again, it's not the big chain hotels that these people are looking for. They're looking for locally owned, smaller and boutique hotels that give them much more of an experience of being in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And this is something even the big brands have noticed. And Lee was talking about how the big brands have gained some ground back during the COVID pandemic because they can offer guests a way of battling through all of these new travel restrictions and travel problems. But already the good brands in tourism prior to the pandemic were understanding that if they want people to book through them as opposed to being independent travelers, they need to create the kind of experiences that independent travelers are going to find it very hard to find themselves. However much time they spend researching a destination, if you're a tour operator working here in Bosnia-Herzegovina, you should be able to create unique experiences for your guests that they can't find in other ways. And I'll give you an example here from Montenegro. And this is we found out that the local shepherds used to have a horse race. So, you know, we fund the horse race. We basically put up the prize money. And the only condition we have is that you only race. When you do race, you only inform my company. So we're the only tour operator that can actually bring people there to take part in this fantastic event. We need opportunities to learn. The guests actually want to get involved in learning something on their trip. And I'll talk more about this at the end of my presentation when we talk about experiential and transformational travel. But there aren't that many opportunities currently on offer in Bosnia-Herzegovina to learn. There are places where you can have a cooking experience, but what we see is much more common is that you would go and watch a demonstration of someone giving a cooking experience. That doesn't have the same value. You can't charge the same amount as if you were actually giving a cooking lesson and people were learning something and having a hands-on experience. The guests want personal connections with the host communities. They want to meet local people, not just the people working in tourism. So they want to go home now and say, I've got Bosnia-Herzegovina friends. Rather than I know the bus driver or I make friends with the people in the hotel, they want to meet local people. Now, that's something that happens naturally and is, you know, unscheduled and unplanned in Bosnia-Herzegovina. That happens a lot if we give the guests time to get away from a tour group. So another thing that we need to do actually is think about perhaps spending less time having these structured moments where we have a guide sat on the bus and we constantly have a very busy schedule and lots of different things to see. But we need to think about where we give people these opportunities to actually meet local people. And the other thing we need to do to create the experiences is bring more local people, more community groups and associations into tourism so that they can actually earn an income doing what they love, which is trying to preserve the unique culture and traditions of Bosnia-Herzegovina, or the unique nature of Bosnia-Herzegovina. We need to show them that they can come and work in tourism and earn an additional income, which they can then use to fund their work, which is protecting the nature and culture. And we need more personalized experiences as well. So again, you know, we're thinking about small group experiences, we're thinking about the tour operators and the travel providers in Bosnia-Herzegovina, creating many more bespoke opportunities for their guests and tailoring the opportunities for them. And this is something that I won't have time to talk about here, but with pod travel, where people perhaps post-COVID are going to want to spend a long time in the destination and have lots of personal experiences for them. So this is something else that I think we need to do if we want to attract more high-value tourists to the region. So that's an overview there. We can change slides, Pedro. That's an overview of the whole adventure travel market, but let's drill down a little bit and look at some of the specific themes that we can create products for. I'm seeing I'm having trouble with the sound. If anybody else is, Pedro, let me know if you can't hear my voice. Someone's just told me they can't hear.
It's breaking up a little, but we can hear you, yes. You
can hear me, it's breaking. It sounded a bit Dalek-y. Anyway, I'll carry on. So let's look at, first of all, outdoor activities, because we have identified, and I agree with Justin, that outdoor is one of our strongest sets when we want to compete on the international market. Again, we need to be a bit more specific, and we need to break down this market. There's, for outdoor activities, there's really two types of traveller, and the first one are what I call the hard adventurers, or the Adventure Travel Trade Association called the adventure enthusiasts, and they're looking for high quality activities. Now, an adventure enthusiast is somebody who has a passion for a particular sport. So it might be rock climbing. They have qualifications. This is what they do every time they travel. This is what they do at their weekends. They're passionate about rock climbing. They have all the equipment and they have all the training. They are looking for the best places in Europe where they can go and have a rock climbing experience. And we have a lot of those. We have those kind of really iconic experiences. The rafting is particularly good in Bosnia-Herzegovina, up to category 4, and I think even higher sometimes. For them, they don't need the same infrastructure requirements. You know, for them, they're prepared to make some compromises with the comfort and the ease of travel if they can get those high quality experiences. So I think in Bosnia-Herzegovina, we're good at offering packages to them, but they are only a very small part of the outdoor market, of the whole adventure travel market. They're less than probably 5% of the market. And you can see from this graph here, the kind of people who would choose a holiday purely for one specific sport within Europe, and you see that the highest is only 10%. So what we need to think about is, yes, we have those experiences. Perhaps we need to do a bit of work fine-tuning how we do our risk assessment and crisis management planning. It's very good, but we need to follow an international system that international tour operators can recognize. It's not good enough to say, you know, just randomly, this is how we do health, safety and risk assessment. We need to have a proper comprehensive look at that across this sector. But we need good quality guides, and we have good quality guides, and we have lower infrastructure requirements. But the biggest market for us is going to be the soft adventurers. And these are people who they want to try different things when they're on holiday. So perhaps it's the first time they've tried rock climbing. And they have different requirements, of course. They want to have much more cultural elements included in their trip. So, you know, they're not coming to Bosnia-Herzegovina because it's the best climbing face that they can find. They're coming here for a whole mixture of different ingredients. They want to try climbing. They want to try it safely with good quality guides and good quality equipment. But they also are choosing Bosnia-Herzegovina perhaps because the food and the culture offer them a bit more in their total holiday package than if they were just, you know, choosing a destination based on these activities alone. So they want authenticity, they want these cultural immersion moments, and they want a lot more put into their package. So I think we need to do a bit more work thinking about how we create complete packages for the soft adventures market. I now want to talk about, again, can you change the slide for me, Pedro? Thank you. Rural and agri-tourism, because this is going to be a very important sector for us. Now, the biggest market in Europe is currently Germany. About 50% of rural tourism travelers are coming from Germany. And what they're looking for is, number one, peace and quiet and escape from the city. But they really want to understand something about traditional lifestyles. And we have that here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I think this is one way we could compete with Italy, rather than being cheaper on price. I think, from my experience, there's more people in Bosnia and Herzegovina living these traditional lifestyles where they're small farm producers producing local produce to take to local market. They still keep alive their local customs in terms of cooking, cuisine, this kind of thing. And I think we need to bring that into our offer. So I've listed some activities here that we could offer, things like harvesting, mushroom picking. I know this is currently available, but we need more of these kind of offers. And we need them more widely spread throughout the destination as well. Grape picking, haymaking, this kind of thing. And often in the Balkans, when I say to people that the guests would like to come and have a hands-on experience and actually have a go at working on the farm, I don't think local people believe me, because this is part of your everyday life and you don't see it as exotic necessarily. You have to think about somebody living in a city who has no connection with nature, has no connection with how their food is produced. Maybe they're a family as well and their children have no idea, they've never seen a cow. For them, they want to come and they want to actually have a go at experiencing some of these farmyard tasks, agri tasks, but they don't want the reality. They don't want to have to get up at 4 in the morning to milk a cow. They want a romanticized version. So again, we need to work with a lot of these small farm owners, and some of them are already offering accommodation as well, but they can add far more to their offer if they think about the kind of opportunities they have to give people these learning experiences where they can actually take part in the activities as well. Food tourism, I think, is next. If we can change the slide, Pedro. There we go. So again, Italy has this great cuisine and it's famous, and already they've started as well through things like the agriturismo, developing more and more hands-on food experiences, because food tourism isn't simply about visiting fine restaurants and trying different cuisines. Food tourism is about the whole story of food production. It's from the history and the tradition of your cuisine, right the way through to, you know, going to the villages, having experiences where you can collect the ingredients yourself, where you can learn how they're processed. So we still have stone mills in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We still have very traditional techniques for producing the food. We have a lot of slow food as well, which is locally sourced food. We have a lot of organic food, and we need to really bring more of those experiences into our offer to create much more value for the offer itself. So it's not just come and watch somebody making the cheese, it's actually have a go at the whole experience, the whole package. And you, by doing this, you can actually create a reason for people to stay longer in a destination as well. And you can also encourage repeat business, because obviously farm production is seasonal, food production is seasonal. So there's different reasons in the year to come back to Bosnia and Herzegovina and try a different experience and try a different season as well. While we're going on, I just want to talk there about, can you change the slide for me, Pedro, because it's not changing. Private dining experiences, we don't make enough of those. Oh.
Medicinal alkohol, antibiotik, bakteri stop, minimal problem, maximum relax i no agresivno.
I'll drink to that.
Imamo bi još nešto na ovo, ali to ćemo poslije. Živjeli.
Excellent. I hope you caught the beginning of that. As you can see, I'm having some trouble changing the slides, but you can see that we have a lot of elements in our offer that just exist naturally here that other destinations are trying to recreate. It's almost like a Disney version of come and have a food experience, an authentic food experience. We have those in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We just need to develop more of them. We need to include more of them in our packages. And obviously we need to market them as well. one area I really want to talk about is wildlife tourism, because this was already growing at about 8% per annum as a sector within tourism, so growing much faster than all tourism. And again, you've heard there from Justin from TripAdvisor, nature experiences are going to become even more important post-COVID. And so how can we create wildlife experiences in Bosnia-Herzegovina? What are people looking for? Well, the first thing is they want wilderness. They want lots of preserved natural habitats. So again, we score very well there. The guests would like to come and see rare and endangered or red list species. And we have those, of course. We have, I like to say we have the last truly wild populations of European brown bear, of lynx, of wolf, of deer species, chamois, and we also have wild boar. So in Western Europe, which is an important market for us, these are now extinct, or if they do exist, they exist within almost like in a zoo condition. They're fenced in and they're controlled. Here in Bosnia-Herzegovina and throughout the Balkans, they roam wild. They roam in and out of the national parks and they cross borders as well. So we have the last truly wild populations. So this is something we need to build on. The problem we have is they are still very rare here and they're very hard to see. So we can't really create bear watching, for example, bear watching holidays, unless we change the behaviors of those bears, if we start feeding them to bring them in to become a tourist attraction. And that's something we really don't want to do. Instead, what we need to think about is creating conservation activities. So we offer people the opportunity perhaps to see a bear. We have a few more bear viewing hides in the national parks. But what we need to do, working with the protected areas themselves, is think about how guests can actually come and work in the park and work on meaningful conservation work. And this was something we developed in Macedonia. You can see on some of the pictures here, where the parks had no funding from the government for conservation, and yet through tourism, they have groups coming now, spending on average 2,000 a week. They have 15 people a week coming to the national park, and some of that money goes directly back into conservation in the park. But the guests get to have a bit of training, put on a bit of park ranger uniform, and we've got a load of really interesting and exciting tasks for them to complete, where they can go home and say to their friends, I actually helped save the last European wild brown bears. So this is a very compelling reason, and people are prepared to pay extra as well on that trip, because we can ensure them that money is going directly into conservation work. So this is one of the things that I think I would like through this project for us to develop with the national parks in Bosnia-Herzegovina. The other thing that we're missing currently at the moment with our wildlife watching offer is we need some more expert guides. We do have some very good guides, but if you're coming on a wildlife specialist trip, you want your guide to know more about the species than you do. So we need guides who can understand not just identifying the animals by sight, but by sound, by track, by mark, to know about the morphology of the animal, its lifestyle, its habitat, its prey species. So again, this is something that the national park rangers have. We just need to find a way to utilize that so people can come and actually work with ranger guides. So this is something we developed for Macedonia, where you can not just a park ranger, but you're a ranger guide. So you can earn extra income by working with tourists and imparting some of that information. And by actually having a ranger as a guide, you add extra authenticity as well to the trip. So we have this opportunity here to develop, and it's something we're not currently developing, but wildlife tourism could be very important for Bosnia-Herzegovina. I'm trying to wait for the slide to change. There we go. Wellness, and before COVID, we saw the definition of wellness changing. Wellness, a lot of people think of wellness as really a 5-star spa where everything's all inclusive. You go and book in there and you have 5 days treatment within the spa. Wellness has already been developing and adapting in the last 10 years. And now people are thinking more about holistic wellness. So they're thinking not just simply about having a spa experience, but they're also thinking about being out in nature and fresh air. And there's these new activities that are developing, things like forest bathing and yoga with animals and natural therapies and holistic health programs and eating healthily and collecting herbs and spices. So this was something that we pioneered down in Trebinje on Pobov, where they produce a lot of herbs. So we could actually make this part of the guest experience where guests could hike, get fit, hiking with the local villages, collect the herbs, come back, make their own essential oils, have a yoga experience. And we create a whole package for them, which has all of the elements in it as well. So again, I think it's taking the elements that we have, identifying them and bringing them all together. And one thing I'd like to say to our audience today is, from this project, we are looking for as many of these unique, authentic, hands-on experiential travel experiences as we can find for our marketing campaign in 2021. So if you're out there and you're developing these kind of activities, please let us know, because currently the trade, the tour operators, the inbound tour operators working here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, if they come across these kind of experiences, I know they tend to keep them to themselves. We need everybody in the destination working together, creating this kind of new product and promoting it together if we're going to have success doing this, because we have to change the brand. We have to change the brand expectation that we have as being a cheap destination to being a high quality destination, where we offer real value for money, but we offer these high value experiences that people can have that you can't now have in the rest of the European Union, because so much of the culture now is too homogenous. When you step outside of the European Union, you come to Bosnia and Herzegovina, you see it's exotic. Speaking as an English person who's moved to the area, it's still exotic to me. I still see things every day in the living culture and the ordinary lifestyles here that I find very different to life back in the UK. And as an outsider, perhaps it's easier for me to spot those, but those are the kind of elements we need to bring into our tours and our packages. So those are specific themes. I just want to finish off by talking about what the new luxury is. And a lot of people talk about what the new luxury is. And one of them is personalization and having your own private experiences. But the industry, particularly tour operators, what's been exciting them for the last 10 years is experiential and transformational travel. So as the name suggests, experiential means that you actually have a 5 senses experience of a destination. You're not just simply looking at fixed architecture or historic sites. You're not just tasting the food, but you're actually, meeting local people, you're preparing the food, you're having this whole five sense experience. So that's experiential travel, and we need to create more of those experiences for our guests. And the other one is transformational travel. And this is something that I think is going to be really key after everyone spent a year in lockdown. People want to travel now to improve their lives, to change who they are. I'll share one statistic with you from IPA, the pollsters. And they asked, in 145 countries, they asked people, do you love your job? Is your job fulfilling? Is it who you are, how you see yourself? And the sad news was that only 13% of people said yes. So that implies that 87% of people out there don't really like what they do every day. It's just a paycheck for them. So if you think about that, think about how important their 2-week holiday is every year. This is when they get a chance to be who they want to be. They have this image of themselves. It's probably not sitting at a desk pushing paper around. They see themselves as far more adventurous and a lot more to themselves. So they want to now come and use their week or their 2-week holiday to transform themselves. So they want learning and growth. And over a 3-year period from the UK just recently, we saw 9 million people traveling to learn something new abroad. And the number one was photography. So here's another little simple trick we could do. If we have, I saw a film earlier this morning where we had a local photographer with the horses. You don't just go and visit the horses. You have a local there who can teach you how to take photographs of horses, and you create a learning experience which has much more value than just simply, take your own photographs and those are the horses. People want also personal discovery, and thankfully Bosnia and Herzegovina is a very safe destination for solo women travelers, for children, for everybody. Very low crime in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so we can allow that. We can to some extent script these moments, but we can find the places where we can let the guests just go out and explore for themselves. Give them the bare basic information, be on hand if they need to come back to the tour operator, but let the people go out and really explore Bosnia and Herzegovina themselves. They can do that here. Overcoming challenges is something else that people put value on. So I know there's a lot of really interesting challenges people could take part in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I know you have these Village Olympics with some really unusual games that people could take part in. So that could be a challenge. A challenge we could be, to make a meal for your host family. Somebody in the family is going to teach you Bosnian cuisine, and then in the evening, grandma and grandpa are going to come and they're going to give you a judge. They're going to judge how good your food was. Or preparing food for a local celebration. These kind of challenges, these add real value to the trip, and you can charge a higher price, obviously, but the guests are happy to pay that because they're getting to do things that otherwise they wouldn't get to do. Storytelling, there's a lot of great storytelling in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There's a lot of great stories and a lot of great history, and we need to perhaps make more of those. So hiking trips, for example, we're hiking through some spectacular scenery, But let's perhaps repackage that as we're following an Ottoman caravanserai trail, or we're following a partisan route from World War II. Let's think about how we bring these stories in, because the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. You put all of these elements together, you package them in the right way, and already I think we can start thinking about creating high value tourism experiences in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Empowerment is another important thing that we can do. And I've already talked about this when I've talked about giving people the chance to come and help preserve what we have here. So by going to a small village where somebody's trying to keep traditional food production and cooking alive, you can go to that village and you can support that person and learn from them at the same time, and know that your money's doing good. It's going directly into the community and the people who matter. And of course, this is very true with conservation tourism. You know, you actually here using your tourist dollars to help save these incredible species, the last that we have in Europe. And the one thing that I haven't really talked about through all of this, and it's a key, it's a cross-cutting requirement for all of these kinds of trips, is sustainability. These guests, they have more money to spend, they're more experienced travelers. They know the impact that tourism is having on the world. They know that their trip could actually be detrimental. And they're traveling to see the things they love, which is well-preserved nature and well-preserved culture. And they want to make sure that that's going to be preserved at the end of their trip. So we have to be fully sustainable businesses. And we have to, all of our businesses have to comply with ISO 611, which is sustainability for adventure travelers. So that's not just environmental sustainability, that's social sustainability as well, and economic sustainability. So I think this is one of the things that companies are doing, but they're not doing systematically, and they need to do better. I don't know in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but I know on this side of the border in Montenegro, we still have eco camps, which are unsustainable. So you ask the owner, why is it an eco camp? Well, it's built in a forest, but they're still throwing their wastewater in the river. They're still burning their solid waste. So that's something we need to get right. And a bit of extra work just to make sure people understand all of the requirements of sustainability. But that's something we can do through training. And that's something that we really should be doing through this project. So that's just a quick overview there. I can give you lots of examples. You heard at the beginning, Ibrahim broke my non-disclosure agreement and told you who one of my clients was, but I did tell him, so it's my fault. But we do offer a lot of these VIP trips now in Montenegro, and that's without having to invest a lot of money in five-star hotels and limousines. So it can be done in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And now I'm going to pass you over to the other panelists and hear what they're doing, because I believe they all agree with me and they're creating similar product. And at the end, I want to ask all of you panelists, you know, if we have this great product, why is this still not happening for us? Why are we still a budget destination? So I think, first of all, Inja, can we hear what's happening in Republika Srpska? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Ja pozdravljam sve u ime federalnog.
Thank you very much. I greet you all on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Tourism. I thank Jack for this excellent presentation, and I welcome my colleagues from Republika Srpska, Brčko district. And I'm very pleased that I have an opportunity to participate in this great event. I followed the webinar yesterday and today, and I thank USAID for having ensured such excellent presenters. I would say I fully agree with you, Jack, but I noted down several points that struck me. You firstly said that Bosnia and Herzegovina is just an add-on to other regional tours. You also asked how we create our offers and how we present them, how we advertise them. That's a very good question for us to think about. And you said that we need to offer a very unique experience to our travelers. I fully agree with you, and I hope that we will be able to implement all these recommendations with the assistance of the USAID project. The Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina has a lot to offer. However, when I was preparing for this panel discussion, we all focused on the adventure tourism in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We learned from the presentations of the international experts that the post-pandemic period will focus on this individualized and adventure tourism. And unfortunately, that the tourists stay in our country on average 2 days. That adventure tourism is something which attracts smaller groups, but high-yielding travelers who tend to stay longer. Our country has a lot of potentials for development of eco and rural and adventure tourism. World media wrote about Bosnia and Herzegovina in National Geographic 2012, said that Bosnia and Herzegovina is one of top destinations for adventure tourism. Guardian said in 2018 that our country should be visited as ideal adventure destination. And Lonely Planet said that Bosnia and Herzegovina was the 4th destination globally in adventure tourism. Let's look at our beauty. The river of Neretva, according to a legend, the ancient Celts gave the name to the river of Neretva. They were fascinated with their beauty, and they said Nera Etva, and that's a divinity which flows. The Federal Ministry of Environment and Tourism funded or subsidized various programs, and I listed some which are important for development of adventure tourism. That's Aventurism in the National Park Una, Adrenaline Park and Zipline at Mount Igman, Adventure Park Fortica in Mostar, Via Ferrata Osobac, and BiH Bivac, Real Adventure, Aqua Balkan, and Via Dinarica. Allow me to briefly refer to all of these programs. The ministry is supporting the National Park Una within the environmental protection efforts, and there were several projects that were implemented there. The National Park Una is the only national park in the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, 13,500 hectares, and it is in the regime of strict protection with about 300 hectares. Certain business activities are permitted there, and I should say that diligent tourist officers work on development of various forms of adventure tourism in this area. As I mentioned, the way in which Neretva was named, I should say that Una, that one of Roman warriors when he saw Una, said, Una, that's the only one. In Adrenaline Park in Zip, they made a war zone, a sport recreational center. They have vehicles, military containers, trenches, and some effects in the area of 150 square meters. Two Turkish movies were and Canadian movies were recorded on this location. This company also is constructing a zip line on the ski jumps from the Olympic Games 1984, and this project was co-financed by the Federal Ministry of Finance and Tourism and Environment. And in preparation of this for this panel, I also saw that IPA also presented this project on their web page as a project that should be funded. Then we have Visit Konitz, or the project offered by this company is specialized for outdoor activities in combination with cultural heritage. As a result, they offer a very active and recreational and experiential stay in Konitz. Then they also offer hiking to beautiful mountains of Pren, Visočica, and they also organize jeep safari in the village of Lukomir, which is an authentic old village in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They visit Konjic, cooperates with tour operators from around the world, from Scandinavia, the Netherlands, Hungary, Czech Republic, and so on. The adventure park Fortica Mostar is a unique experience. They have a zip line, 570-meter long, and the starting point is in front of the mountain hut with the flag of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it ends on the very steep cliffs with 13 directions for climbing, and there is a zip line or climbing track for kids also. Ferrata Osobac and Via Ferrata Osobac, and it was formed at the proposal of the Mountaineering Association of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Via Ferrata is a challenging track, and it's a pure joy for those who love climbing. BiH Bivak is actually a mountaineering shelter high in the mountain, and it is open around the clock for all hikers, and its purpose is to provide for shelter in adverse weather conditions. There are 4 such shelters for hikers on the mountain, then bivak on the Visočica mountain, Barnido on the Pren mountain, and bivak Gazić Mučak on the Veleš mountain. Real Avantur, or the team of this tourist project, offers mountain biking, hiking, mountaineering, archaeological and speleological workshops, and trails to some caves. It is interesting to mention that on their web page, they provide a very interesting overview of BiH destinations as compared to worldwide destinations. Then a resort is being constructed outdoor Bosnia. It is a complex which offers a whole range of adventure experience. It is along the river of Neretva, or in the canyon, near the canyon of Rakitnica, the mountain Prenj, and Bjelašnica. And it has been planned to build several bungalows, some apartments, but the situation disturbed the plans. But the bungalows and the restaurants should be available by the 1st of May, and they will become operational. And on top of everything, we have the project Via Dinarica, the project that we are very proud of, and it was developed. The government of the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, at the proposal of our Minister Japo, funded this project with 900,000 km. We should also note that this project contributes largely to the sustainable tourism and provides opportunities for rural population to improve their life and livelihood. And this is why it is considered to be a very important project for Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is the beauty, the river of Una. This was the overview of the projects subsidized by the federal ministry. We have some other projects which we co-finance, but we don't have time to mention all of them. The Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina also has high-class hotels and other tourist offers that the tourist workers have designed on their own efforts. They're bringing tourists in, and they're encouraging the tourists in the Federation in Bosnia and Herzegovina to come to the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Allow me to end with the note that we should all focus on presentation of adventure tourism as a good ground for further development of tourism. We remain available for any further information, and we will continue working on our activities to contribute to this project.
Thank you very much, Inja. I mean, that's great to see that we're creating more product. There is already, I think, enough product there. We have reached critical mass so that we can actually get out to the market now and start selling this. It's interesting to see why we're not doing that. So we'll talk about that at the end. But first of all, let's hear from Jelena and the situation in the Federation. So I'll hand over to you, Jelena.
Dobar dan, hvala vama na pozivu.
Good day. Thank you for inviting me, and I'd like to invite all my colleagues and greet them and all those who are following us on the online platforms. Just as Inja did, I will say that we as the ministry also followed trends, and we realized that the tourists are leaving this concept sea, sun, and sand. They are turning more to the adventure tourism and new experiences. So we pointed our activities towards development of these destinations. So what happened? In 2019, we were fortunate, and I believe my colleague from Brčko district will agree with me, as well as Inja. We had a lot of offers and a lot of donor funds, and we all got together and decided that the money should be used for those destinations that will bring along these guests that Jack had been talking about. Guests who want to experience tourism, culture, and our perfect gastronomy, I freely say. Maybe we can agree or disagree that we have low prices, but our prices are relatively low. About these specific experiences, as Jack talked about, you can really experience something new, maybe a traditional culture. You can spend time with the local people. We are very hospitable. Bosnia and Herzegovina is safe for international guests, so I will be optimistic and say that we can find a good place in the current tourism market. I just want to emphasize one thing, and I want to thank thank you for the study of tour operators. I saw that people asked for the list of tour operators, so that will be the first good step. From the donor money and the for business, we received some important assistance for building the infrastructure in those destinations that can bring tourists, but they need some additional help. So we developed the concept of adventure tourism in destinations such as the national parks Kozara and Sutjeska, the Sarajevo, Romania region, and we have one project in Novi Grad. So I will tell you what we saw and what the destinations recognized as appropriate to offer to tourists, and I believe they will be ready to go to the market at the end of 2021. On this slide, you can see the Sarajevo, Romania region. This is the region that offers skiing in Jahorina and boarding in Jahorina. And as a part of the infrastructure, we are building the BiH Firata hiking path. There's been a lot of coverage in the media about this. Yesterday, actually, an artificial climbing cliff has been installed in Trebević. We will have some tracks for the artificial ice and hiking paths, etc. So there is a lot of things from our heritage that we can present here. Here you can see a mountain house in Trebević, in Bruce, and that is a replica of a house that is characteristic for this region. We also have it's not yet protected, but untouched and pure nature, like this source of Miljacka here in the right bottom. These destinations are ready to be placed in the markets. And as Inja said, we can attract, I'm confident we can attract these tourists and offer them what they want. This is a very interesting destination, and I'm very proud of it because thanks to the enthusiasm of a couple of people, specifically a person, Mr. Pavić, the whole municipality got a new lease on life. He got the idea to turn an old deserted primary school into a visitors center that can offer accommodation to tourists and can also be used by the local population when they need to do something. When they need to get together, they get together in this old school. So this is a building used by tourism purposes and the local community too. What is important here is that they are oriented towards sustainable tourism. They use renewable energy, solar energy. Also, they offer their homemade food and their homemade products. They also produce their own produce, and the accommodation is quite good. Now they are installing some wooden houses that are very comfortable, as you can see them on the picture. And the tourists are offered mountain biking or hiking and the climbing, cliff climbing. They can go enjoy the spring water that can be drunk. And what is very interesting for this region is in Mrkonjić Gran, there is a 500 years long tradition of harvesting, and this is used for tourism purposes. You can, for example, go to the forest, pick some mushrooms, and then turn them into your evening meal. So all these destinations have the things that Jack had offered, that Jack has talked about to offer. There is hiking. Sutjeska is a good example of that. That's where the highest peak in Bosnia-Herzegovina is located. There are several rafting camps. You can raft Tara, another river where you can drink the water, the river water. There is also the ancient virgin forest, Peručica. It is currently on the temporary protected list, but I hope it will become permanently protected. Then we had the pyramids that you could see in the previous slides. And another thing that gives some additional flavor to it. In our national park, we had this music festival for young people. And that's when a lot of young people come there. Another thing that is important here is that there was a major battle of the Second World War taking place in this region. It was a very, very important battle for the outcome of the war. And in memory of that battle, this monument was built of great architectural and historical value. The third project, or fourth, that received funds from the European Union is Kozara National Park. Again, here we have a monument to the Second World War of a great aesthetic value. Here you can ski, you can enjoy adventure park, you can taste our local cuisine. And another thing that can be said about this park is that you have downhill tracks and mountain biking tracks. And we have regular competitions being held here. These are just some of the destinations. And I'm sure we can already now, at this moment, go to the market and bring in the tourists. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Jelena. That's, again, some really great examples of what we have existing. And I particularly like the example at Mrkonjić Grad because I've been there as well. And what I like about that is that's a private sector initiative. So that's somebody who's seen the potential and started developing product. And I think we need to motivate more of the private sector and the small householders and people like that to understand that they have a role to play in this kind of tourism. They can earn an extra income from this. They can still do what their main job, but there's things they can do to get involved in this. So that's a really nice example there. Again, at the end, the question is, you know, those small providers who are creating those kind of experiences, they're saying that the tour industry, the tour operators aren't really interested and aren't selling it for them. They're struggling to sell the experiences they've created. And sometimes when we talk to the tour operators themselves, the inbound operators, they're saying, well, there aren't enough of those experiences. So there's kind of a disconnect here. We need to get everybody working together. So we'll come back to that. Let's hear from the Brčko district now. Is Aleksandar there? So let's hear what's happening in Brčko.
Dobar dan još jednom i zaista srdačan pozdrav svim učesnicima.
Good day once again, and warm greetings to all the participants, all the panelists, all of those who are watching us. And a big thank you to the organizers, the USAID. Thank you to Ibrahim, Selma, Azra, with whom I had a great cooperation already in the past. And thank you for this very good public forum that managed to recruit and attract everybody who is important in tourism in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also to provide us with valuable information by others who look at things from their own angle and give us some important projections of the future developments that we in Bosnia and Herzegovina within our constitutional competencies need to take over and adjust to the new trends. So congratulations for organization of this event. And I will use the opportunity to say something about Brčko district. It's not a town with developed tourism. We have no ambition. We have no illusions that we will have a lot of tourism contents. Until the COVID, we saw some important growth in terms of the overnight stays and the numbers of visitors. And that tells us that tourism has been somewhat neglected. I will try to introduce the Brčko district to you, and because I think most of you have never visited this place. It has a very interesting geographic position that allows for development of all different kinds of tourism. And this location, because it's in touch with the many regions, and it's in immediate vicinity to the European Union. And they are not only outbound market for us, but it also connects Brčko, connects Republika Srpska and the Federation. And we heard yesterday and today that tourists will prefer to not go very far. And that's where we see a chance for us. We are a transit town, and we are a transport hub, because this is the only river port on the Sava River in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is currently being reconstructed. Brčko district covers 493 square kilometers, 1% of the territory, around 100,000 population. Before the war, we had a well-developed industry, but now it's in the stage of reconstruction. But all these potentials, natural and geographic potentials, Majevica, River Sava, as well as anthropogenic heritage, it is all underused right now and could be used for development of tourism. Last year, we celebrated our 20th birthday as a district. As it's called the Dominium. It is a local administration unit of specific kind of organization with the own executive, judicial, and legislative power. And this can be seen an advantage and a privilege in view of all the decisions that have to be made in terms of tracing one's own path. Of course, the historical turbulences have left their trace on this town. So in Brčko district, we can see traces of different epochs, different times, different ages that bear witness to what has happened in the past.
In Brčko, you can experience some very old architectural experiences, and you can see some new buildings, modern buildings. On the slide, you see the city hall from 1882, one of 3 city halls in Bosnia and Herzegovina, designed by the well-known Gavrilović, Austro-Hungarian architect. And this building was constructed before the city hall in Sarajevo, and this indicates that Brčko was a crucial point in the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. What we have highlighted throughout our history is our multi-religious nature, and in both urban and rural areas. And we should say that tourists who visited Brčko in cruisers were surprised to see such a small place with such a rich tradition, so many historical layers, and multiple religions living there together. And you see on the picture the religious facilities, and the religious officials have helped us a lot and we call them partners when it comes to the development of the Brčko district. Brčko is well organized in terms of cultural, historical events around here, and we have a very we have different contents, which events that take place outdoors or indoors, and we showed the tourists some art colonies, some sport competitions, kayaking, canoeing on the river of Sava, and hiking to the mountain Majevica. We have something to offer throughout the year. We have attractions that can attract the tourists that you mentioned, Jack, in your presentation. And we have natural assets that have been not used properly. We should use them more in further development. Of course, rural areas of the Brčko district, they retained the old architecture, the gastronomy, and folklore. Every village has their own legends, some caves, interesting and mythic caves, and they can be used to encourage tourists to come. But this is a grossly underused potential in development of rural tourism. I should also note that our rural areas is rather large, because this is the Posavina area, flat area, and we can provide for activities, outdoor activities, which is very attractive for this time of pandemic. You can do camping, you can do a lot of other things outdoors and have a very active or family vacation outdoors. Of course, the financial base and the facilities for tourism are sufficient to respond to the most demanding tourists, and in addition to various restaurants which serve traditional cuisine, we can also taste some new culinary recipes. And at the end, we can conclude that while we have rich potentials, this is still insufficient to call them tourist products that can be promoted on the market. But we are still happy with the cooperation with international institutions and the donors who have helped us to review some strategic documents. And I do expect that this USAID's project and work with Ibrahim and other colleagues will help us find a way to revise our strategic plans and to adapt them to the new trends and to go to the market with a very good tourist offer, which will be attractive. Jack asked very good questions. We need to address them because this could remain only at the level of potential otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aleksandar. And I particularly like your summing up there. Yes, we do need to think about how we add value to all of these experiences. And in your presentation, you showed those lovely churches and that building. And I don't want to be dismissive of ancient monuments. I know at the beginning of my presentation, I said we rely too much on taking people to look at things. But I think across the board in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not just the ancient monuments and the churches, but also the museums, we need to think how we add value to that experience when people go there. So, for example, a museum probably doesn't have a bookshop or a guest shop or a souvenir shop or a restaurant. There aren't exhibits that people can pay extra to get, this interactive experience with the exhibits, these sorts of things. We need to think about how we monetize, how we get more value, not just how we earn more from these experiences, but how we create a better user experience by offering these extra experience. We make it a better experience for people to go and visit those destinations, for sure. So the question, I don't know if we've got time, we're running a bit short of time at the moment, but the question is really, why isn't this happening? I don't think we're still living up to our full potential. And I'll take Via Dinarica as my example. It's one of the best, if not the best hiking trail now in Europe. It's absolutely fantastic. And yet it's not, there was only one tour operator that I looked at that even mentioned Via Dinarica currently. And there's people living along the Via Dinarica route who perhaps have accommodation or perhaps can provide some of these experiences. They're not being utilized at the moment. So what do you think, can anybody, I'll throw this open to all of you. How do you think we connect up with the tourist industry, with these small providers, and then get this to market and get this sold? Because I think this is what the biggest gap is. We need more experiences, but we need to really sell the ones we've already created as well. Does anybody want to answer that? It's the final piece.
If I may try to follow up and to exercise some self-criticism, having been engaged in different positions, even in the government, we who are decision makers should take things more seriously. It's not sufficient to give a grant or subsidize a project. We need a more strategic approach to tourism as an underused sector in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which can contribute largely to a better coordination, to a better approach to tourism. Via Dinarica is a great product which is underused. And in addition to this lack of activities, we still had a recorded huge increase of tourism. That was a random increase. But I should, on the other hand, say that we should give the credit to our tourist organizations, primarily the tourist organization of Republika Srpska. I've worked a lot with them. These are people who know the value of the local project, and they succeeded in creating an international product for an international market, which is rather attractive. And people who are appointed to different positions and who are responsible and work in the sector of tourism should advocate before governments, before parliaments, to have documents, the documents for development of tourism. I don't have a problem to say this to myself and others who have not been sufficiently engaged in advocacy. And your assistance, which was really valuable, brought us to the point that we already plan to include some changes in this sector. Thank you.
Okay. I think, and another thing I think is we need to some extent, empower the private sector as well, because a lot of the projects we talked about, they're donor-funded projects, and they're fantastic, and we need them. And I'm not going to do myself out of a job as a consultant, but I think the businesses in Bosnia-Herzegovina need to understand that they are sitting on a gold mine. It wasn't just, I mentioned my VVIP clients, but my business now in Montenegro brings some of the biggest international brand names in adventure travel to the region. Because Montenegro has a lot of these very similar things that we try, that we offer, that you have actually better in Bosnia-Herzegovina. So I think if the private sector could understand that they don't need to rely on funding from anywhere, it doesn't require a lot of investment. It's a creative industry, tourism, and they need to think creatively. And they need to actually think about how they can package and put together and create something really special with the elements that they have. And then they can get to market straight away. And during the discussion, somebody asked me if they could see a list of the tour operators, the high value tour operators that we're not currently selling product to. I'm happy to share that list with you at the end. I think you're going to get a copy of the presentation. But before we just immediately get on and start talking to those, let's have a think as well about how we talk to international tour operators, because I think I've been at trade shows with delegations from this region, and I think we have to do a bit of research first and understand not just the customers, but what are the tour operators looking for? And we have to speak their language. And that's something else we want to do through the project, is we want to help the businesses in Bosnia-Herzegovina to make these connections, particularly now there aren't trade shows taking place as well. There's lots of ways you can find these international tour operators. And I've been talking to a number of them as well. And I've been asking them, would they come on board and help us to create products specifically for them in Bosnia-Herzegovina? So that's a process we want to help you through, talking to those international tour operators. But believe me, I know that they're ready. I know there's some interest. A couple of people have already said they'll pay for their own familiarization trip to come here, as long as we can make sure we put the right product in front of them when they're here, because their time is precious. But they will pay for their own flights into the region if we can actually create the right product for them. So that's something that we want to do, definitely, because I think marketing and promotion, once we've created these new products, is a gap that we have. So that's something that the product wishes to address. I think we're about 10 minutes over already, but does any of my other distinguished panelists want to say any parting comments? My parting comment is we're sitting on a gold mine. We just need to know where to dig. And any of the others want to say something? You're good?
Yes, before we go, we have a fantastic video from Brčko district. Hadža, do you have the video?
I don't have the video myself, no. I haven't seen it.
Here it is.
Ah.
Jack, you're muted.
It's because of the delay. I'm just saying now we have to go and visit ourselves, Aleksandar. We have to come there. So extend an invitation. I'm only next door in Montenegro. I'd like to come and see for myself.
We're going up to see him around the 8th or so of March, right, Aleksandar? That's the timeline we're talking about. First or second week of March, I think. Second week of March. You have a number of festivities taking place in that area. So, what a better time to go. Jack, why don't you hop in? We'll go together. Good. I'd like to thank our colleagues from the ministries, from Brčko district. It was a wonderful session. You're all great ambassadors for the destination. I mean, you could stand in any international forum and pitch for this and make people want to jump on a plane or in a car and come and visit. So congratulations to all of your work. Wonderful assets, of course. And the question for all of us is how do we package them and present them to the right audiences in the international marketplace. Thank you again. We appreciate your partnership and we look forward to continuing the discussion in the next days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.